Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the April 20th meeting of the Rotary Club of Louisville. I'm Walt Kuno, president of your club, and I'm here to remind you first is to silence your phones. Also, as Louis Straub is making his way up to the podium, I want us to have a moment of silence to continue to remember those that were affected. All of us were affected last week, and Officer Wilt particularly lifting up a prayer in his for him. Providing our invocation today is Louis Straub, president of Independence Bank, and Paul Harris Fellow. Welcome, Louis.
Thank you, Walt. You know, it's fitting that we had this moment of silence because what I would like to do today is share with you words from Father Nick Rice. So last weekend was a difficult weekend for us bankers, and I attended a lot of the visitations and funerals. And I'm going to read to you some things that Nick Rice said, Father Rice, and then we'll have our prayer. So this was at Tommy Elliott's funeral. And he said, I want you to imagine this for a moment. I want you to imagine that Tommy's a spirit in heaven. He's not on his earthly journey yet. So Tommy gets tapped on the shoulder by God, and he says, I'm tapping you on your shoulder, and I'm going to send you to earth for your earthly journey. And for your journey, I have 5 commands. Love your fellow human beings. First command, love your fellow human beings. Love your family and your friends. Treat all people with grace and compassion. Number 2, work hard. I have given you unique talents. Use those talents for good. Do not waste the gifts that I have given you. Number 3, enjoy life. The human experience is wonderful. There is so much to see, to laugh, to dance, and to love. Number 4, make the world a better place. With all the gifts I have given you, it is your responsibility to leave the world better than when you arrived. And finally, find your way back to me. The earth will be filled with temptation, but remember my love for you. Find your way back to me. So fellow Rotarians, I ask you to pray with me. Oh, Heavenly Father, on this earthly journey, help me to love my fellow human beings. Help me to work hard and use my talents for good. Help me to enjoy and cherish this gift of life. Help me to make the world a better place. And help me to find my way back to you. Amen.
Now providing our pledge and 4-way test is Marissa Neal, president of MMN Consulting, and Paul Harris Fellow. Welcome, Marissa.
Good afternoon. Join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and now the 4-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Marissa. Please be seated. Rotarians, please make your way to the back, to the microphone. I'm not seeing it, but it's somewhere there. Jolene's got it. If you have a guest, good day, y'all. Is that what y'all say? Good day, y'all? No. That's the way we say it here, so good day. We've got a bunch of New Zealanders here, a bunch of Kiwis. We're going to be hearing from them. Our meeting may run a little bit long today. I hope you can stay. If not, just sneak on back out the back. There we go.
President Walt, Josh Studer with the Chamber of St. Matthews. I have 3 guests today, all from my team: Kristen Ferrari, Elizabeth Cleary, and Virginia Hart.
President Walt, Susan Zepeda. I'm proud to welcome 2 tables full of visiting Kiwis, as you called them, from our Rotary Friendship Exchange. They'll be introduced later in the presentation at the end of the meeting, but if they could just stand up and get a Rotary welcome.
Hello, Carlos.
Hi, President Walt, Carlos Hernandez Ocampo. My guest today is Gabby Pirtle. Gabby, get up. She's one of my former law students, and I'm proud to say she passed the bar and is a public defender.
What you didn't hear was she is a public defender, so God bless her, and she has the best smile of anybody in the room. Try and beat that.
Hi, President Walt. I'm Courtney Evans, and my guest today is Dr. David Fink. Stand up, David. He is the CEO of Jewish Family and Career Services.
Thank you. Welcome. Hello, past President Jean, and one of the best darn past presidents we've ever had.
Hello, President Walt. Good to be here. My guest is Eileen Van Hoos, who's Vice President of Potter and Associates. Eileen, can you stand? I want to tell you that she and Karen Morrison know each other because she and her company did the Gilda's Club building, if you've ever been in there. It's beautiful.
Hello, Bruce.
Ben.
President Walt, it's Ben Reno Weber.
Ben, how did I get Bruce? I have no idea.
Bruce is another tall,
Yeah.
good-looking guy recently elected to
Bruce
Metro Council.
Almighty. Bruce Almighty.
There you go. I have 2 guests today, Lauren and Radisha from Martin and Muir. They are the co-founders of the largest and one of the fastest growing Black-focused behavioral health companies in our town. They're doing phenomenal work, so come check them out. And I also have Abigail Cheek, who took her last final as a U of L student this morning.
Yay.
And is a project manager on our Impact Innovation team at the University of Louisville. So, Abigail Cheek.
And Ben, you're good. You also make me the second tallest guy in the room. Thank you. And the best thing about all the mistakes I make is the joy that they bring to others. So there we go.
I don't know why everyone is always body shaming us tall people like that. Just calling us out.
All right. First, I want to say that I have this that was left here. If this is your glasses case or if you recognize it. Okay, awesome. I have 2 guests, I believe. Is Carrie here? Carrie Finelli, did she make it? Right here. Right here. Did I say it right? Is it Finelli? With Mission Advancement, Fundraising Grants, Corporate Social, all kinds of stuff at St. Joseph Children's Home. Welcome. And Christy Jarbo she's a Senior Economic Development Manager for Small Business at Louisville Forward and serves on the board of Canopy with me and is I've been trying to get her here for a while, so y'all make her feel like she has to join, okay? Anyone else that we missed? All right. Thank you all for being here.
Guest, if you're interested in becoming a Rotarian, back in the back. Where's Craig Sherman? Is he here yet? Not yet, but he will be. He'll be back in the back to tell you what is Rotary. We're getting on with the program today, so I want to welcome Josh Suter, CEO of the Chamber of St. Matthews, to the podium to introduce today's speaker. Welcome, Josh.
In January 2018, I walked into 502 Hemp to meet with Dee Dee Taylor to discuss becoming a member of our chamber. At that point, I didn't have a clear understanding of hemp, the hemp industry, or her business. But Dee Dee not only took the time to share with me about her business model, her industry, but she also explained the benefits of using hemp-based products. I also immediately discovered and have continued to observe over the years what a passionate, committed business owner she is. Dee Dee works very hard not only to make her business thrive, but also to make sure that what she's doing helps others. Helps them deal with pain, anxiety, lack of sleep, and so many other things. Dee Dee's passion for this work is personal. Dee Dee's husband, John, suffers from grand mal seizures. No explanation as to why. He wasn't born with them, but in 2010, that was the height of the debilitating episodes. After a horrific episode, Dee Dee urged her husband to find a natural alternative. The pharmaceutical drugs were not working, and the side effects were horrible. Her husband traveled out west and learned about CBD oils and began to use the products, and his seizures immediately stopped. And he has gone 5 years seizure-free. He's only had 8 seizures. He's only had 8 seizures in 13 years. Dee Dee began taking the oil herself for debilitating anxiety and panic attacks in 2016 and has noticed an overall improvement in her own quality of life. She decided to switch career paths to focus full-time on the hemp business and helping others. In addition to owning 502 Hemp here in Louisville, she recently opened 812 Hemp in southern Indiana. In 2002, Dee Dee was appointed by Governor Beshear to his Medical Cannabis Advisory Committee and continues her cannabis advocacy as an honorary board member for Kentucky Moms for Medical Cannabis. On December 21st, 2022, Dee Dee was commissioned a Kentucky Colonel for her advocacy work in the cannabis industry and advocating for legal hemp products and restrictions on Delta-8 products instead of an all-out ban. Both she and her business have won many awards over the years, but in my opinion, it's her genuine care and love of people is what makes her a successful businesswoman and advocate. Will you please join me in welcoming Dee Dee, owner of 502 and 812 Hemp, and might I add, a proud member of the Chamber of St. Matthews.
That made me tear up with that, Josh. My goodness. Sometimes I hear that story when someone else is reading it, and it just still shocks me, and it's so surreal. But thank you for the introduction, and thank you Rotary members for having me today. When Deline reached out to me, I was like, how could I not give a speech on 420? Right? And I'm going to tell you what 420 is, so bear with me. But it's truly an honor to be here today, and I really appreciate this. I was actually a Rotary member over on the east end of town right before COVID happened. And then when COVID happened, I kind of had to step back and focus on my business and couldn't keep up with the Rotarian. But I love what you all do, and I appreciate everything that you do. And maybe one day I will have the chance to come back to be a Rotarian. So thank you for having me today. So today is 420. It's not just April 20th, but it is an unofficial holiday for cannabis users. What does that really mean? What does that really mean for Kentucky? Well, this past year was absolutely incredible. And most people call this the stoner holiday. I'm not a fan of that word. I'm not a stoner. I am not a flower child. I am not, sitting around my home getting wasted off of the devil's lettuce. So that has never been my forte. So I've always, now in my role, I'm just trying to break down that stigma that has been there for so long. I would have never guessed this is what I would be doing for a living. I'm actually a paralegal by trade. I had intended on going to law school, but then I went to a private Catholic college up in Cincinnati and got my student loans and decided that I needed to work and get those paid off. So law school didn't end up being for me, and that's okay. I worked really hard in the paralegal field and loved what I did. I got to help people, but what I do now is way more rewarding, I must say. My husband, while he is the story of how I got into the business, he isn't really, he is everything, but at the same time, when I chose to do this, I knew that I would be able to help other people and change that stigma that has been associated with a plant for so long. So that's kind of what brought me to this. And where did 420 even come from? I mean, some people think that it's a term that the police officers use. Oh, somebody's smoking marijuana, they're about to get busted. But it actually started with a group of kids back in the 70s called the Waldos, which I didn't even know about this until someone helped me write a blog on it. So I was like, yay, now I got something to tell you all about. But it started back, it was a group of kids back in high school in the 70s. They'd meet at 4:20 every day after their extra school activities, and they would partake in the devil's lettuce. And it became so popular that they actually were friends with the Grateful Dead. So this term, right. So the term just suddenly became part of the counterculture. And then back in the 90s, High Times magazine actually posted this flyer that was sent out in Oakland telling everybody to partake at 420 at 420. And then it became national. So it is the unofficial holiday of cannabis products. But how's that lead to Kentucky, right? Because nobody, especially myself, ever thought that medical marijuana would pass in this state. Most of us truly believe that we would be the last state. But we didn't. So, we weren't. I think it's going to be Indiana, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, let me get back to my notes here. So this excitement really started probably back with Gatewood Galbraith. I'm sure some of you know his name, and if you don't know who he is, you might want to do a little Google search, because he's quite interesting. But he was, to me, the pioneer marijuana advocate, like here. I want to quote him. He said, I quote, "The U.S. Constitution did not say we have a constitutional right to possess alcohol. They said we have a constitutional right to privacy in our homes, under which fits the possession of an extremely poisonous alcohol. Now, this is the law in Kentucky today. In fact, it is these rulings that keep the Kentucky State Police from kicking down the doors of people possessing alcohol in Kentucky's 77 dry counties." This was back in 2012. Dry counties right now, and hauling their butts off to jail. Now, marijuana is a demonstrably less harmful substance than alcohol and presents far less of a threat to public welfare. So it also fits in a person's right to privacy in their home. It's beyond the police power of the state as long as I don't sell it and it's for my own personal use, end quote. And that just hit me because my husband's a veteran, and while he was being helped after the fact through the VA, they did not recommend cannabis. They recommended 28 pharmaceutical pills a day. Those pills were killing that man. It wasn't until he started using cannabis products that we actually made it home in our basement back in 2010, and I was terrified the DA was going to bust in our door. I really was. Being the paralegal, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to go to jail. All their bank accounts are going to be frozen. I mean, I even thought about divorcing him just in case. So, I mean, keep everything separate, right? You know, plausible deniability. So anyway, so considering he has seizures, and that's what brought us to this industry, there's no doubt in my mind that Gatewood was right. I truly believe that too much alcohol is one of the triggers in John's seizures, amongst other things, but there's no doubt that when he has too much alcohol and other things going on with him, he will have a seizure. I know bourbon's aplenty in the state. It is kind of how we embrace a substance that has killed thousands and thousands of people, broken homes, center of domestic violence, and is the true gateway drug. But we have parties promoting it, and alcohol stores were considered essential during the pandemic. You better believe that I was open during the pandemic, and I consider myself essential. I have way too many customers that use my products in place of alcohol, or they add to it. But either way, I consider myself to be a hemp pharmacy. And I was prepared to fight for that. Thank goodness I didn't have to. And I bet a lot of you are wondering how I ended up on the governor's committee. I mean, I'm just a small town girl from Ohio. I came down to be with my husband in Kentucky. I worked in northern Kentucky for attorneys up there, but I would have never guessed I'd have been down here. I actually ended up sending an email to the governor when he made that announcement that he was going to start this committee. And I pretty much just told him, hey, this is what I do for a living. This is why I'm involved in these products. This is why I've opened my store, was to help educate, provide quality, safe products, reliable products. And lo and behold, John and I were on vacation, and I got a call from Frankfurt, and I'm like, oh, I bet that's the Department of Revenue, and I don't want to talk to them. I didn't answer, and I let it go to voicemail, and a few minutes later, I listened to the voicemail. I was like, no way, it's the governor's office calling me. And my husband didn't believe me. So I had to play it out loud for him. And I called him back, and they asked me a whole bunch of questions. And I didn't even really tell anyone until it was like official, because they got to do background checks and all that fun stuff, make sure you're on the up and up. My husband was a little jealous he wasn't picked. And I said, well, you didn't send an email, and I did. So he might be just a little bit more articulate when it comes to some of the chemistry side of cannabis, but I had the anecdotal evidence, and I think that's what the governor's office really was needing. But during this, as my role on the committee, we were asked to travel around the state to 4 different areas for town halls, where we would listen to the people of the state and listen to what their stories were, whether they were for it or against it. And I tell you what, I still get goose pimples. Some of the stories I heard, I know my husband's story and my story, but the rest of the stories I was hearing from people would literally bring some of us to tears. I cried a few times. They were just so heart-wrenching. You've got military veterans coming back, and they're on so much opiates that they can't even function, which just led them down suicidal paths. And instead, they couldn't take cannabis products, but when they did, would go to a legal state, like their entire lives just changed. I heard about a mom whose son is autistic and has gastroparesis and can't hardly even communicate. They had moved to this state from an already legal state, and he was getting cannabis out there, and he was using it and doing phenomenally well. But then to come to Kentucky, he couldn't use it anymore legally. People were telling her to go ahead and take it, do it, who cares, nobody will know. She's like, what if they take my kid away from me? I'm his caregiver. I can't just give him an illegal product here. And that really hit home. Because one thing that really got me about cannabis and in general is that it made a lot of good people criminals. And that's one thing that scared me even about getting in the hemp industry. I'm like, yeah, it's legal as of 2018, but we started it way before then. And I was always terrified about that too. I put myself through college. I got out of that trailer park town up in Ohio. I worked really hard to be where I am today. And it scared me. It really did. And knowing that there are so many people that are sitting in jail over a plant, and that's all it was a plant, no other violence, nothing else, but they're still stuck there, some of them even today. It's sad. Policies have to change in order to move forward, obviously, but that always frightened me. So as we're listening to more of the stories at the town halls, it just really dawned on me how much we need to move forward in this state. Can't be that last state. Do you know that Kentucky has the best, it's the best place to grow cannabis in the entire world. We were set to be the mecca for hemp. But because of some of the rules and regulations that our Kentucky Department of Agriculture imposed, we're not. We're not in this state. It actually is not flourishing like it could have. And it's a shame. So when people of power talk about how they are pro that, I beg to differ. I've been in this industry with my husband since the beginning, and it is not pro hemp in Kentucky like so many people think. As a matter of fact, in 2020, there was a new product that was introduced called Delta 8 THC. I was like, whoa, what's this? So I started doing my homework and researching it, and I'm like, okay, this is a legal product. I started carrying it in my stores. And then 21 came along. On 4/19, the day before 4/20, mind you, the Kentucky Department of Agriculture sent out a guidance letter that said it's an illegal product. And I was like, I can read law. I know what the Farm Bill says. I know what Kentucky Revised Statutes say, and it doesn't mention anything about Delta 8 being illegal because it's not a synthetic like they claimed. It's naturally occurring in the hemp plant. So I was like, okay, I don't know where this is going to go, but it pretty much forbade the processors and farmers, anybody with a Kentucky Department license in the hemp industry from growing it, making it, all of that stuff. But I'm like, it didn't really affect retailers. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to worry too much. And then I got a personal email from the department because I was registered as Kentucky Proud. And I was told that I should reconsider selling those illegal products and that I was not allowed to use the Kentucky Proud logo on any of my marketing material. So I scrubbed my website, took it all my Kentucky Proud down, because really, I wasn't very proud of Kentucky at that moment. Anyway, so then I'm like, I'm not, we'll move on. We talked to some attorneys about it. There's a group of us, and we're like, well, we'll just let it go. It's just an advisory letter. It's not law. Then some stores out in Brown County got raided. And then I was like, oh no, I am not going to jail. Nope, not happening. I do not look good in orange. It is not happening. So a big group of us got together, and along with the Kentucky Hemp Association, we ended up filing a lawsuit against the Kentucky Department of Agriculture and the Kentucky State Police, because the Kentucky State Police used that letter to get their bench warrants to raid those stores. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we actually ended up winning. We ended up getting a temporary injunction in, February 22, the last day of the month. And then the very next day, there was a bill introduced into the Senate that would ban Delta-8 products and all other cannabinoids, literally the day after we got our temporary injunction. So, for reason, I was thrust into politics, and I never wanted to do that, ever. But we started organizing and managed to stop the ban. It passed the Senate, but we managed to stop it in the House that year. And then all this advisory committee stuff happened. So we managed to kill it. It was still considered legal. We ended up winning our lawsuit, thank goodness, got a final order in the case. We actually won. The judge agreed that Delta-8 THC is legal because the Farm Bill only made Delta-9 THC illegal up to 0.3%. So that was really the language that pretty much saved the whole industry in this state as far as the retail side goes. But moving back, I did jump ahead a little bit, especially from my notes, because that one really hit home to me. If Delta-8 had been banned, this entire industry would have been gone. Like, I would not still be here today or a business owner. So it really hits home for me. In November of 22, Governor Beshear signed an executive order for medical marijuana listing 21 medical conditions that would allow Kentucky patients to have access to medical cannabis beginning in January 23. Huge list of different ailments, which obviously epilepsy and seizures was on there, thank goodness. But it must be bought in a legal state. You had to keep your receipt, up to 8 ounces. Have to have a certification from a licensed healthcare that shows you have one of the 21 medical conditions. He also issued an executive order regulating Delta-8 THC products, which I was like, woohoo, that I could have had something to do with my report, I don't know. But I did obviously share my thoughts on that with the governor when I had to provide that report. So, but the thing about the medical cannabis executive order actually caused a lot of issues for Kentuckians and for our legislators. Many people thought that marijuana was suddenly legal and they could just come to my store and buy it. People were driving me crazy. I'm like, no, we do not sell marijuana. You can't get it here. If you could, people would be wrapped up around Shelbyville Road. They'd have to have police escorts, but anyway. Or a lot of people also thought that they needed a medical card. Technically, there was no medical marijuana program for you to get a medical card. Scams started happening. People started getting, kind of ripped off with that. Pay $250 and we'll get you a medical card. And I'm like, please don't waste your money. I did interviews with the media. I was like, don't waste your money. There's no actual medical program yet. So what you buy now is not going to be good for later when we hopefully do have one. So I think it did exactly what Governor Beshear wanted it to do. It kind of forced the legislators to bring it for a vote. That was his plan all along. He obviously is for it, obviously was trying to do his best to help the cannabis community. I mean, I've met him a few times now, and I think one of the most rewarding times that I actually met him, I was with the Kentucky Moms for Medical Cannabis, and I'm trying to get emotional. Those ladies are phenomenal women, And I have so much respect for them. And they're the ones that really, I think, push the needle, and other advocates in this realm. But they literally were getting pictures of all their friends and family who need these products, who use cannabis products for whatever issue that they wanted to need it, to use it for. And they literally created a mural at the Capitol building in the tunnel. So every time the legislators had to walk through it, they had to see tons of pictures of Kentuckians that wanted medical cannabis passed here. And obviously, this is a state that has a very alive and thriving underground market for marijuana. It's coming in from all states. But what they really want is they don't want to be criminals to use a somewhat legal product that was legal in 37 other states now. So that was kind of the basis of that. When the Governor Beshear came down to talk to all of us, I got to show him my picture of my husband and my daughter. Because mind you, I adopted her when she turned 18. She is my husband's daughter. She's mine now. But she had to watch her daddy, when she was 6 years old, have a grand mal seizure on the ground, flopping and not knowing what to do. So can you imagine that little girl's PTSD? Even to this day, she's 25 years old, God bless her heart, and still suffers from that. I don't even like to tell her when he does have one, because I know it brings back those memories, and it's just frightening. If you've never seen someone have a grand mal seizure, I hope you don't, because it is horrific. And I got to tell the governor our story and what brought us to this entire industry. And I tell you what, ours is nothing compared to some of the other ones. I could not imagine watching my child have seizure after seizure after seizure and not being able to do anything about it. And those moms for Kentucky Medical, they do. That's their kids. That's their lives. So the governor was extremely compassionate. And I think once you understand how cannabis works in your body and you learn more about it, which is what I do at my businesses, is we teach and educate and provide those products. But once you realize that the fact that we all have an endocannabinoid system, and the cannabinoids in this plant actually works within our bodies and actually helps our bodies find its homeostasis, usually once you try it and you feel the difference and just how much better you feel, it will slowly change your mind. And that's what I've been doing for the past 6, 7, 8, 10 years now. But it does help. It's not a drug like we have been forced to believe that it is. These products are just, I would have never guessed it. I mean, I grew up thinking it was a drug too. But if it truly was a drug, why does our bodies keep THC for up to 45 days? If it was really a drug and poison, like we've been told for so long, our bodies would get rid of it. That's what our bodies are designed to do. That's why we have a liver system. That's why we have kidneys. It gets rid of the poisons, right? In order to you got to keep taking your daily medicine. You got to keep taking the pill. You got to keep using heroin. You got to keep using meth for it to stay in your system, because your body is designed to get rid of it. But for some reason, your body keeps THC. And that was the one thing that really dawned on me. And I was like, I truly do not believe these are drugs. And then once I started using it, you don't have to get high to get the benefits from cannabis. CBD products are amazing. You don't have to get high to reap the benefits of what these products can do for your body. Granted, I am not supposed to make any claims to these because we're still fighting with the FDA about it, whether it's a supplement or if it's a food. But from what I can tell you personally and anecdotally, these products help people. They have been this whole time, and it should have never, ever been demonized like it's been. So, moving forward, we finally got medical passed here in the state. Woohoo! He signed the bill on March 31st. I was actually there right next to the governor when he signed it. Talk about history in Kentucky. That was such a big deal. I got the call, or they sent me an email the night before, and I had meetings the very next day. You get that email from the governor, he wants you to be there for the signing. Well, you cancel all your meetings and you go. And luckily everybody understood. I was like, I could not be there for that. But the one thing that really was amazing is my husband came with me, and while I was pretty much doing all this for him, he's the one that was taking all the pictures because he was just so proud that I was there doing what I was doing and I worked so hard to help get this passed in the state. And it's funny, during the time before it actually passed, I was with the moms and we did our lobbying and what days I could be there. And I went and talked and met with President Stivers. And the one thing that I really noticed when we were walking back into his really nice office was how much bourbon bottles he had stacked up on his shelves. So that just kind of, I'm like, yeah, and it is poison. It's just poison. But he said that there needed to be more research, that he wanted to make sure it was done right. He kind of blamed it on the federal government for kicking this back to the states and I kind of agree because we do need to legalize it federally. But he said that he wouldn't stop it from a vote, and I'm glad he didn't because Thayer actually ended up himself, and he is the bourbon, you know. I'll leave that. But he did actually vote yes for it, so I'm so glad that I was part of that changing the minds. And just legislators, it's hard because you want to do what's best for your community, and I understand that. And we, as constituents, need to do what's best for us, and we need to be able to use a plant without that fear of prosecution. So the bill is not the best. Some of the things that they already have in it, I am completely dumbfounded by, but obviously I didn't write it. There's no smokable flour. We're not allowed to have smokable hemp flour either, which I think is silly. There's a milligram limit to 10 milligrams on like edibles and gummies. There's so much other stuff that I'm sure will be coming out. They have until 2025. That's when it is literally supposed to take effect. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of more rules coming. So hopefully I can help regulate with some of those too. But the crazy thing is, truth be told, you really don't need a medical card to purchase THC products. They already exist from hemp. And I know people think that hemp and marijuana are two different plants, but technically they're not. It's the same cannabis sativa plant. They both originate from that. And put it in easy terms, hemp is just bred to be high CBD and low THC, so it can meet that threshold of that 0.3% of the delta-9 THC. Where marijuana is bred to be high THC and low CBD. But they're the same cannabinoids. Same cannabinoids that are found in hemp are also found in marijuana. So that means that 1 gram gummy equals 1 milligram of THC. So I already have federally legal products at my store. And trust me, I did my homework before I started telling them, I promise. But it means that you don't have to wait for the medical marijuana program to find relief now. And especially legal relief. You don't have to drive to another state. You don't have to get that doctor's note. I mean, obviously, we always tell people, if you're on other medications, check with your doctor, check with your pharmacist, make sure they don't, counteract each other. There are a few medications out there that CBD and marijuana do react to. Morphine being one, statins being another. I mean, it's not that you can't take them, you just need to be advised of what the issues are, and I'm not a doctor. So for us to give medical advice, we don't do that, but we do tell you to be smart. So we already have products here. They're already safe, they're already legal. People have questions. They just need to come in and ask and get educated. And hopefully, we can keep moving Kentucky forward, and that we're not the last state, which, yay, we weren't. So, do I think recreational will be here? No, that's going to be a long time coming. I think we were very, very lucky to get medical passed, and I'm okay with that. But, in all honesty, it's not my issue to judge anyone for what they want to use cannabis products for. And isn't that what we're not supposed to judge others? I mean, it's in Genesis. God gave us all the herbs we need to help heal ourselves. It's right there. There's no reason that this drug should have been demonized like it was, because truthfully, it is just a plant that our body actually needs to perform at its exemplary function. So happy 420 Kentucky. I appreciate you, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for that informational talk on cannabis. We have time for 2 questions before we're going to hear from our Rotary folks from New Zealand. So here we go. Here's question number 1.
Hello, Dee Dee. My name's Tony Hammond. I'm a grower in Fern Creek. Do you have any idea of when Kentucky might approve growing cannabis other than marijuana? I know we have hemp.
I think they're going to have to do it in 24 so you guys can get it grown in order for dispensaries to be able to sell it in 25. But there's nothing's been set in stone yet. So hopefully.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you again. You can still stay right here. Thank you. As with all of our speakers, we have a certificate that says we've made a $500 donation to the Rotary West Louisville Housing Initiative, where this Rotary Club is raising $5 million for first-time homeowners in our 9 named neighborhoods. So this is in your honor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And please join me. So I think you got with this a good day.
I did.
Here we go. Here's our door prize. Ready? All right. 242-0922, 922. Do we have a winner? Winner. Going.
I promise it's fun.
Don't come up later saying I had it. 922. Here we go. You got it. Hey. 936. Oh, there we go. Mark's got it. You got it right up here. Thank you. All right. And now we're going to switch gears. We've been hosting a long overdue Rotary Friendship Exchange. A team from the North Island of New Zealand is here. To share a brief presentation is Alan Hitchcock, District 9930, the Rotary Friendship Exchange team leader. And good day, y'all.
Thank you, President Walt, for that welcome, and also to Vice President Barbara. She's right here. Yes, for your welcome this morning, and your very interesting talk about how things happen in Louisville, which is slightly different than how they happen in New Zealand. We're just going to have a brief presentation today, and at the end of the meeting, Darlene is going to send a link to our presentation so you can have a look at it at your leisure so we don't take too much of your time. So today we're just going to briefly tell you where we're from. I'll get each of our people to get up and introduce themselves, talk about what their Rotary Club does, and also a little bit about themselves and their area. So to make a start, how do I make this work? Just press the sideways key? Yeah. So, how many people have been to New Zealand? Okay, so that's a pretty good turnout there. So you know that when you go to New Zealand, you actually lose a day on the way, don't you? And when you come back from New Zealand, you actually gain a day. So at the moment over there, it's 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So if anybody wants to know what the lotto numbers are going to be, so you can see the divide there between where we are and where you are in America. So this is New Zealand. It's not attached to Australia, which a lot of people think. And G'day is actually an Australian welcome. Max is going to give you a New Zealand welcome shortly. So we're made of 2 islands, North Island and the South Island, and Australia is to the west of us. And the only way for us to get there is by plane. It's about a 3-hour flight. So we now would like to bring some greetings from our district governor. Put my glasses on there. From our district governor, Kevin Forgeson, to this district of Rotary, and also to your district governor, Nancy Steele. Now, I know Nancy's not here. She's from Bowling Green, I think, isn't she? So we'll get to meet her a little bit later on in our visit. So we're from the North Island of New Zealand, as Walt introduced us earlier, and you can see there's a little funny triangle type thing, which is where our district 9930 actually is situated. So it's quite a big area. It would probably be 200 miles across and 200 miles deep. And we have 52 clubs in our district with about 1,000, I think, put me right, we've got about 1,000 members in our district? 1,400 members in our district. So I'll introduce, to start with, myself and my wife Sharon, who's across here. We come from the Bay of Plenty. And I think there's going, oh no, is there an arrow showing up there? Yes, I'll just go back on screen. So there's an arrow that's dropping down to an arrow. The Bay of Plenty has got its major centre being the port of being Tauranga. It is the 5th largest city in New Zealand. We've got 120,000 residents, so it's not a large city by American standards. And one thing that's a bit different about Tauranga at the moment is we don't have a mayor. Our elected mayor and city council were removed 4 years ago because they couldn't get on with each other, and the government appointed 3 commissioners to run our city almost like a business for a 4-year period, so that they could start doing some things and getting the city moving along. Tauranga is the home of the largest port in New Zealand, and its primary exports are kiwi fruit, which you'll know, or kiwi. You know what kiwis are, logs and dairy products. In Tauranga we've got 6 Rotary clubs. My club is the Rotary Club of Tauranga Te Papa, and we've got 54 members. We run a number of projects during the year, but one of our major projects is the Rotary Youth Driver Award, I think it's called, where we put 1,400 young people between the ages of 16 and 17 through a course, so 1-day course, to talk about driver safety, so that they will hopefully survive their journeys on the road. We're assisted there by the 6 other Rotary clubs in our area to make sure that we get a good turnout from all the high schools. Just personally for myself, I'm married to Sharon, as I mentioned earlier on. Sharon's not a Rotarian, but she may as well be. She's fairly heavily involved. Over the last 4 or 5 years, she's led 4 major fundraisers for our club, where we've raised $120,000 to go towards youth activities in Tauranga. I myself work in finance, and we have 3 grown-up adult children and 2 amazing little grandchildren. 1 3 and 1, perhaps not so little at 10. I'll now introduce you to the rest of our team, and we've got Colin and Colleen Olson from Makatu. So Colin, do you want to give us just a couple of minutes about Makatu Club and yourselves?
Good afternoon to you all. You probably realise that me being a past district governor, it's pretty hard to make me sit down, but I will endeavour to be concise. Colin and I belong to the Rotary Club of Makatu, a 19-member club that is a seaside, lower socio-economic area of New Zealand. We have about 3,000 people in our area, so being a club of 19, that's a pretty good ratio for any community. We have more women than men in our club. Yay! Colleen is coming in, I think, for her 2.5 time as president of our club in the coming year. And I've done 4 times, not of my club, but 3 in another club and in this club as president, so I'm well versed on that. I'm an armchair sports person. I referee, and the referee has a hearing aid, and he hears my calls, blows the whistle, and says, now, by the way, just in finishing, I only support 2 teams in New Zealand in rugby, only 2 teams. The All Blacks, you know about them? And anybody who is playing Australia.
Thank you, Colin. I'd now like to introduce Ray Toms, who is from the Rotary Club of Taupo.
It's important to make that distinction. We are an amalgamation of 3 clubs, and Taupo Rotary was only one of them, and I wasn't a member of Taupo Rotary. I was a member of the newer, younger, more vibrant club of Taupo Waiata, and we have many claims to fame. I should say, I guess I'm a Rotarian of 43 years, and I was in Rotaract before that, so and my father was a Rotary president, so I've sort of had Rotary most of my life. Our claims to fame, we are very, very fortunate. We own our own venue, which is pretty rare. The local district, our local district uses our venue a lot for meetings because we are very central. We are very central to the whole of the district. We also run a community van where members of community groups can get the van for nothing. All they have to do is put the diesel in and return it clean and tidy, and somebody looks after that. And when we had your team over with us, I booked that van out, and that's what we used to take them around as well as their own van, because we have a law in New Zealand where if you have more than 12 people in a vehicle, you have to have a passenger licence. So when you've got a 12 team and a driver, it gets to be a problem. We have a number of key events, and our biggest one is a cycle challenge. Where, I should have actually mentioned that Taupo is the most beautiful area in the North Island. I did admit that, and our lake is approximately 100 miles in circumference. So we have a cycle race which cycles around it. It's basically a challenge, but we do have a race component as well, and that has been our major fundraiser for many years, and effectively we were getting about $100,000 a year out of it, plus we were distributing $100,000 on top of that to community groups who volunteered to help us out. Unfortunately, when we set it up, well, when we took the event over, there was nothing like it happening. Now everybody's copied it, and our numbers are not quite the same. We peaked at 11,500 riders. Now we're back to about 4, but even so, it's still the biggest cycling event in New Zealand. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
Now, from a wonderful place called the Hawke's Bay, we've got Merv. It's not quite as nice as the Bay of Plenty.
I'll dispute that. We have rugby competitions, and come on the Bay means come on Hawke's Bay, not the Bay of Plenty. Yes, my wife Anne over here. I'm in the Taradale Rotary Club, which is by Napier there. We look on or face on to the South Pacific. A club of about 50 odd members. Been going for quite some time. Our major fundraising over the last few years has been a country fair and a country auction, which has been going very, very well. The only problem this year, we've had all our equipment stored in a 40-foot container. We had a cyclone come down, strike the coast. The 40-foot container floated about a mile away and ended up about 40 foot up a hill with a swamp down below it. So we're not too sure how we're going to get it. So we're not too sure of the future of it. But anyway, we will no doubt resurrect it. It's great to be here, and it was great to see the Kentuckians in Hawke's Bay. The main industry in Hawke's Bay is really fruit growing, apples quite a bit of horticulture, and the hill country farming, which is mainly cattle, smaller cattle than what you have, are killed at a younger age, and also sheep, but the sheep numbers have dropped down quite considerably. Right. Thank you.
And last but not least, we've got Max Patmore, also from the Hawke's Bay. I think he's going to give you a special greeting.
On behalf of my wife Elizabeth and myself, I'd like to thank you very much for hosting us. We've had a wonderful time so far, and we know we've got a lot of adventures ahead of us. As the Rotary Friendship Exchange from Kentucky came to my area, they all know how to say hello in Maori, which is kia ora.
Kia ora.
Pardon?
Kia ora.
Very good. Our club has about 30 members in it, and we are the Art Deco capital of the world. Our area was levelled in 1933 and rebuilt in the Art Deco era, which makes us the prettiest and most beautiful city in New Zealand. Our club has about 30 members in it, but within 15 miles, unlike this club, we have 10 clubs. So we're club rich, and the membership isn't quite 300 or 400, unfortunately. Our chief fundraiser is what we call a trailer food raffle, which we have every year, whereby we buy a brand new trailer, tip trailer, nice and shiny and steel. We register it, put a tow bar on it, and put a huge pile of food in it. And we sell tickets for $2 or 6 for 10. Now, you might think that you probably don't break even, but between ourselves and Havelock North that do the same, we get about $35,000 because people come along and the men say, oh, I'll buy a ticket and get the trailer, and the women say, oh, I might get a ticket and go for the food. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Meg. So that's given you just a brief feel about New Zealand and our part of New Zealand and our district. And hopefully at some stage we will get to see some of you that haven't been able to come so far to have a look at our wonderful part of our country. We do have, this is probably a reasonably old-fashioned exercise these days, but we do have a...
We're old-fashioned too.
Thank you everybody for your hospitality. We've only been here 2 days, but it feels like we've been here forever. We know you.
So I had some fun facts about New Zealand. I didn't want them to, I didn't want to steal their thunder, but they have a hill with the world's longest name, right? Y'all know this? Can you pronounce it? It's got 84 letters in it, so that's 2.5 times. I'll try. Near the southeast coast of New Zealand, its Maori Lane runs 85 characters long. It says, the summit where Tatamea, the man with the big knees, the slider, and the climber of mountains, the land swallower who travels around, played his flute to his loved one. So they've got that going for them. One of y'all said you had more women than men in your club, right? So y'all don't know this, but in 1893 they were pioneers in women's suffrage. So they had voting for women in 1893. How many of y'all? Yeah, there you go. It's home to Tolkien tourism, and Hobbiton is just a great place to go. That's on one of my bucket lists. There are 3 languages recognized in New Zealand. Can anybody name them? Maori, English, sign language. Sign language is their official language. Also, there are 5 sheep for every person in New Zealand. So when you go to the grocery store, it says lamb from New Zealand. You know where it's coming from. And then, did you know there's 3 different kinds of kiwis? You know what kiwis are? What are they? A bird? A fruit? And our guests, kiwi. All right. So, with that, and now, next week, we have Ursula Madden, External Affairs Manager from Blue Oval SK and Blue Oval City. And let me turn the page to see what else I'm supposed to do, because I've already forgotten we were supposed to network. We didn't do that. That's okay. We'll network next week. We're also going to write some notes to our heroes and those folks that are a little suffering still, but we'll do that next week as well. And now for WWW. It's spring and it deserves its own special Walt's Words of Wisdom. There's one good thing about this world. There are always sure to be more springs. There are always flowers for those who want to see them. Henry Matisse. If people did not love one another, I don't see what the point would be of having spring. Victor Hugo. Happiness is to hold flowers in both hands. Japanese. And spring shows that God can do what God can do with a drab and dirty world. Virgil Craft. And a flower blossoms for its own joy. Oscar Wilde. Guest, please be back there. Craig is reminding me, he's got back in the back. What is Rotary for members? Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Oh, wait a minute. Got one more thing. Sorry. So we have a former Louisville Rotarian who's now assistant governor out in California, right, Robert? Robert's right here.
Can I add?
Yes.
When she was talking about where the 420 came from, San Rafael, where I live.
So Robert brought a door prize, and it's a bottle of Weller. And for those of you who don't know it, yeah, I heard a bunch of woo. I said, Robert, can we hold this and advertise to see how big of a crowd for people to get a chance of Robert's generosity? So thank you. Come back to Rotary for this really great bottle of bourbon. All right? And now we're adjourned. Thank you.